What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the. I do this all the time, Martin. I always say welcome back. I always say that. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Protect Our Queens podcast, the very first episode of 2024. I'm here. Martin's here. We hope you had a wonderful holiday season and an exceptional and safe New Year. We have a lot to talk about. As you can see on the screen, Kiyomi McMiller committed to Rutgers this past weekend. We're going to talk a little bit more about the 2024 WNBA Draft, specifically the bigs, and just because we have to, because we didn't really dive into it yet, the potential of Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston in Indiana really got me thinking. It really got my juices flowing this past weekend. So I can't wait to get on to it. I know Martin's ready. I'm ready. I hope you guys are ready because we have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it. Let's get right into it.
Protect our queens.
No matter what it takes, we must protect our queen.
I just love playing the game. It's fun.
I'm reacting on what the defender does.
I hit them with a hezzy. After that, they quit.
Yeah, I think I've always just been able to get downhill, so I've sort of prided myself on that.
I know what I'm doing. Like, people can't tell me I'm not doing the right, I've been taught the right way.
Yes, sir. Back again.
Happy New Year, my brother. How are you, man?
Happy New Year, man. Great to see you again. Great to be back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, it felt like such a long 2 weeks because just so much has happened. It was just 2 weeks, but so much happened. Wow. Man. We did the Tuesday before Christmas, and then here we are. It's been 2 weeks, man. I feel like it's been such a long 2 weeks because so much has happened over the last 2 weeks, and we haven't had the chance to do this every Tuesday to talk about all the stuff.
Things have been happening. Things are happening. We don't have that much to talk about. We have a few very crucial topics to get to and talk about. We don't have a whole lot to do. Wherever, if anyone's watching or listening live, we don't know where you're at, but if you've got weather like us, your power may be compromised. So we're gonna get to this and get through this, and not
for our sake as well. Well,
now we're not
a generator, so more so for my sake.
We're not gonna play with Mother Nature out here. So we don't have too much to do, but we do have some very pressing items to get to, don't we, Dwayne?
Absolutely, Mr. Martin Stories, and at the top of the list, Kiyomi McMiller, the very first guest to Protect Our Queens, has committed to Rutgers University over the weekend. It was a super big deal. This is huge, obviously, for Kiyomi committing. Anyone committing to college, a very big deal. A huge deal for Rutgers as well, but also a huge deal for you because you called me after a nap. You called me after a nap, and you were just thrilled. You were. Man, you thought you won the lottery after Kiyomi. Well, I guess you did because you live in Jersey, and it's right there.
Technically, I am a Rutgers fan. Technically speaking, I have connection to the program. If you know me, there's history there. There's a connection there. So, as you know, you were right here. We were together when you heard me say to Kiyomi that I felt like she should go to Rutgers after we had her on the show. But man, this is. We talked about what a player of her caliber would be to whatever program she goes to. And so for her to go to be right in my backyard at the program that I grew up watching and adoring and seeing all this great talent come through during my lifetime and even before me. This is definitely special for that coaching staff. Coquise Washington in her second season, taking over from Hall of Fame Coach Stringer. This is huge. A 5-star ranked, player, whatever. She's the most exciting, most talented player in the country. And going to Rutgers is a big deal, and it makes sense. There are reasons why it makes a lot of sense to me. Absolutely.
I'm going to be honest. I happy for Kyomi. I'm not nearly as thrilled as Martin is, just because I don't have the ties to Rutgers the way that Martin is. You guys, we should have gotten one of those. We should have recorded. I don't think I've ever witnessed you more excited on a phone call or just in general than you were about Kiyomi McMiller committing to Rutgers University. There's a lot of excitement to go around. You're not the only one that was excited. Friends and family who were there at the commitment were very exciting. I love this for Kiyomi. Again, when she came on the show, one of the things she mentioned, and we clipped it and talked about it on the show and posted it. One of the things that she mentioned was one that was super important for her was trust. She wanted to make sure that wherever she was going, she trusted. And so shout out to Rutgers for earning Kiyomi's trust, because she is a superstar player. She's going to continue to make waves and make noise at Rutgers. And she's just going to continue to be exactly who she said that she is, which I love. So I like this. If Jerm was here, he'd play the I like this move button he's got on Talk About Sports. This is great. I think it's a match made in heaven. You don't get a lot of matches made in heaven nowadays, but I think this one definitely is a match made in heaven for sure.
Yeah, well, if you know your history, if you know your Rutgers history, you know about the slew of talent that has come through that program. I could literally go down the line: Benaja Laney, Kalia Copper, Arella Garantes, Diamond Johnson, back to Tasha Pointer, Cappy Pondexter, Essence Carson, Matee Adjavon, Epiphany Prince, Tyler Scaife. The list literally goes on. Khadijah Rushton, and these are players just in my lifetime. You can go back to Sue Wicks and Teresa Grants. That program is known for high level talent. And to me, that's one of the reasons why it made a lot of sense. And to me, that matters. That matters when, if you're a high caliber player looking at where great talent has come through. And a lot of that talent went on to the highest level to play at the WNBA. So that to me, that matters. And I talked a lot. I went a little more in depth on my show, on my podcast, which will be out tomorrow on my channel as well. But another big reason why this makes sense, Marcus, is because the Rutgers basketball brand is actually booming right now. The Rutgers men's basketball program just signed 2 top 5 players for the first time ever, right? Their last top 50 recruit they signed was in 2008, Mike Rosario, who I actually played against in high school in AAU. But Rutgers men's basketball does not have the storied legacy in terms of talent that the women's side has had. But men's basketball just struck gold recently, and I was even thinking that I'm thinking, man, that's pretty big. If you're a high level talent being on the women's side being recruited by Rutgers right now, you take notice of that because Dylan Harper, his brother Ron played there, his father Ron Harper played for the Chicago Bulls and all that good stuff. But Dylan is the goods. The other kid, Ace Bailey, I think he's top 5 in their class too, or whatever. Dylan is a special lefty, 6'5", big guard, special player who will impact them right away. Ace Bailey, same thing. He's like 6'7", 6'6" or something. Yeah. Versatile small forward. Great athlete. They're going to make impacts right away. So that they both signed somewhere in the last few weeks or something. And I was thinking to myself, oh man, that's some nice buzz. That's a nice buzz coming. And I felt like there were things that made this make a lot of sense in terms of the Rutgers brand is booming right now. And that definitely solidified it. I'm like, man, this is the time for the women to land a big time name like a Kiyomi McMiller. So I'm definitely thrilled. I'm definitely pleased right now.
I think the other thing too that's interesting, because we've talked about this a lot as well, is obviously with the changing of the way that women's basketball especially has transformed as far as when you go from having just your powerhouse programs to having a lot more parity across the country, where you don't just have your normal suspects, right, that are landing all the top recruits and are winning all the championships, but now you have teams like Iowa, right, who are on the rise. You have other teams like Virginia Tech, who's always really good, but now they're a lot better than they were before, right? You have teams like UCLA, who's actually, again, always really good, but now they're really, really there, right? So forth and so on. Kiyomi going to Rutgers is just another example of that parity that we're getting across women's basketball. And so whether you're a Kiyomi fan or not, whether you're a Rutgers fan or not, as a women's basketball fan, especially for college, you have to love this because it's just another team that in the next year or two could be right in the thick of things. We're talking about some of the best teams in the country, at least from a talent standpoint, right? You think about teams like Notre Dame, who we've talked about a lot on the show so far, right? And how under Coach Ivey, now they have Hannah, obviously Olivia Miles, who's hurt, but will be coming back, how they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, right? We understand that Iowa's a force to be reckoned with. It just makes women's basketball so much better when there's it makes basketball a lot better when there's so many teams to root for. You're not just rooting for one of the, the 4 heavyweights to lose, but you're actually rooting for other teams to also be just as successful. So for me, just from the parity standpoint, that's the part that I love the most about it, because it's just another example of a program that, as you mentioned, doesn't usually get high quality, high ranked recruits committing to their program and getting them one step closer to being a name that we'll all be looking out for. If nothing else, aside from who Rutgers is in the brand, if nothing else, Kiyomi McMiller brings a lot of eyes to that program, and it's going to be fun to watch her play.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Rutgers.
I mean, their last high level, high ranked player. I'm pretty sure she was a 5-star or whatever. I don't get into the stars and the rankings and stuff, Marcus. You know me. I'm not. That people want me to get into that ranking stuff. I don't. I have no time. What Diamond Johnson? They had Diamond Johnson a few years ago. They were in the NCAA tournament. They lost in the first round. That was the team with Arella Garantes during the COVID year. I had a chance to cover that team. I was one of the only media in the building because it was COVID season, so it was like a ghost town, no fans in the building. But Rutgers they've been able to land talented play. Like this is like not new. They've been able to land top talent. The big thing is from New Jersey. Now Kiyomi's not from New Jersey, but she's playing high school ball in New Jersey. Yeah. And that's been a big thing lately on the men's and women's side for Rutgers, which again is so big why they landed Dylan Harper, is like getting these high level kids, because we have so many coming out of Jersey on the girls and boys side. And it's like, why aren't they going to Rutgers? Going back to your point, Rutgers is in the Big Ten. And if you're doing your homework, if you know what's going on, the Big Ten is expanding next year. And if you know what teams are going to be in the Big Ten next year, you know what players are going to be in the Big Ten as of next year. And if you think about that dynamic, like I said, I go into more depth on my show, which you can watch tomorrow on Basketball Society. But there's a lot of reasons why this makes sense. And then again, going back to the brand, Rutgers is in the Big Ten. It's a big network, big names, big brands. This is huge for Rutgers to get a big name like this. And we've talked about the basketball dynamics of Kyomi as well, too. Like she's not just a great talent, she's a unique, rare talent. And part of what you heard me even say to her was that I feel like Coquise Washington is a good candidate based on what I've seen and heard. I've only met her once and talked to her briefly, but just based on what I hear, she seems like the right kind of coach to coach a rare, unique talent like Kiyomi McMiller.
I won't get on my soapbox about why I don't like that the Big Ten is expanding, because we don't have enough time in the day to get into that.
Is it football related? What, you're a Pac-12 fan?
It's not. No. It's not like. Well, I am an Oregon fan, so I guess by default I'm a Pac-12 fan. But I think. I mean, I guess we can kind of get into it. I think from a basketball standpoint, I think there are certain things that shouldn't be touched. I think there are certain games that shouldn't be touched. And I think the beautiful thing about basketball is football, especially, you get to see these girls' family at these home games for like the rivalry games and things, and you uproot an entire program because the football team wants to leave, and it just becomes a big mess. But that's the shortened version of why I don't like it. Of course, when you think about certain players matching up with other players that we probably wouldn't have ever seen before, without them moving conferences, it's definitely big that way. It's all about money, of course. That's all that ever is about. But from a logistical standpoint of just enjoying, as a basketball purist, from the sense of I like rivalry games in basketball, we're losing some and getting new ones. But like, I don't think the new ones will ever be I don't think they'll be as good as the older ones. Because the beautiful thing about rivalries in college is it's UCLA and USC, who are like in the same state, not far away from each other, right? It's Maryland and Michigan, a rivalry that's kind of been created recently because Maryland's been in the Big Ten a little bit longer, right? Not as close, but still closer than like
wasn't Maryland in the ACC and they came over?
Maryland was in the ACC, exactly, right? So Michigan. I mean, they've been in longer relative to the new teams that are coming over, right? It's Maryland and Michigan is a new one because they've been in long enough where it exists, right? Yeah. But in I love basketball rivalries. I think basketball rivalries are the best kind of rivalries because you get the true fan experience going to go see a basketball game as opposed to a football game, because you're right there as opposed to being all the way back here. You know what I mean? But that's just me getting on my soapbox. It'll be great either way. I just have to.
It might suck for the players and the coaches, the traveling and stuff. But as a fan, I am very excited to see certain matchups like you alluded to. I mean, the fact that we get to see, I want to see that. I want to see. You're gonna want to see Rutgers against USC next year too. By the way,
of course I would.
It would have been. I'll say, and I said on my show, like, it would have been cool to see Kiyomi go to Ole Miss, SEC. She would have gone up against LSU, South Carolina. Like, that would have been cool. And I think Coach Yo at Ole Miss is doing a great job. That would have been fun. But yeah, there are many reasons why I felt like from the beginning, why I told Kiyomi myself, Rutgers makes a lot of sense. And the last thing on Rutgers too. So they've been to the NCAA, they've been to the tournament in the last few years, but they haven't been past the first round in 10 years. They haven't been past the second round in 15 years. But when you go back to like the late 2000s, that prime Stringer era, it's like Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. They played in the national championship in 2007 against Tennessee. They lost to Candace Parker in Tennessee in 07. But it's like when you go back to those prime years that when I was a kid going to the rack watching these games, like when you go back, when you know your history, Rutgers was one of those elites, right? So it wasn't even just about bringing back parity or anything. They were one of those powerhouses. They were there every year when they were in the Big East, when the Big East was the Big East. Those were the days, man. But I see this as a move that brings Rutgers much, much closer back to that level of glory.
Absolutely. Speaking of excitement, being the nerd that I am, I'm thoroughly excited about the draft. Draft season for all sports that I cover is my favorite time of year. We get to sit down, we get to look at the talent of the future and figure out how they're going to transfer to the next level. You know, how their game's going to translate, who their game best benefits. We have a lot of bigs this year, and as we know, women's basketball is a big girls game, right? The history of the WNBA is dominated by bigs for the most part, right? You have your exceptions in there, right? But by and large, some of the greatest players ever stepped foot on a basketball court on the women's side of things are bigs. That's actually, I mean, that's the case for like men too. Like you think about the greatest players of all time in the NBA, also bigs. The year of the big. This is 100% the year of the bigs. I know we've got Caitlin Clark and we have Paige Beckers, who are obviously the top two guards in the country. They're going to be the top two guards on most boards, obviously, because they're the two best players in the draft, arguably. But the bigs. Martin, which big are you most excited to see? Where do you want them to go? Like how, when you talk about like fits, who goes where in your mind? Like what makes the most sense?
It's definitely interesting to look at. I think there are 4 of the prime bigs that we're looking at that when even looking at I looked at Yahoo and ESPN mock drafts the most. And both of them, well, actually one of these bigs, I think Yahoo has one of them outside of the top 15, but generally I think these are the 4 prime bigs that we're looking at in this draft that you can that are being put in different places that you can really get into. It's really interesting because there's a lot to work with here. I think we're both really high on Aliyah Edwards.
Yeah.
You have Cameron Brink, obviously. She's projected to be top 3, I'm pretty sure, in both mocks. Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese. Am I missing one? No, Ricky, and then you have the 5th, who I would say my 5th, actually, I would say 5 is Alyssa Peely, who's the one I said Yahoo has her outside the top 15, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. But I think Alyssa Peely should easily be in there. She put 37 on South Carolina. They had nothing. I mean, she's averaging 22 and 5.
No answer.
Country in assists. And the offense goes through her. So I mean, you're sure she's 6'2", undersized, big, but I mean, since when have we let that stop us from seeing that a player is just naturally special? And what she does as a player on both ends, honestly, is super impactful. So it's one of those that you can't overthink. But I think those are the 5 bigs that we're looking at. In terms of who I'm most excited about, again, I know we've talked about Aliyah Edwards. I think people more and more are starting to realize that she can be really special. I don't know who I'd say I'm most excited about. We've talked about Angel Reese. We all know how kind of interesting and little polarizing she can be right now. But I mean, I don't know I don't know. Like, where are you going with this? Because again, I know we're both high on Aliyah Edwards. Like, I think when you look at all the bigs, she might have, I don't know, she may have the most upside.
Aliyah has the most upside, which is why I'm high on her, because we love upside, right? I'm most looking forward to Cameron Brink, just strictly because, as I talked about on the show, our last show of 2023, I think Cameron Brink has the potential to break some draft boards. I really, really do. I don't want to kind of rehash this discussion because we already had it, but when you look at the LA Sparks, I'm just going to say it again. It's at some point in time, right? When let's think about it this way. When you think about the bigs in the league today, right? Like the elite bigs in the league today that are on, I'm not going to say on their way out, but are definitely closer to retirement than they are to their debut, right? You think about players like Nneka, you think about players like Elena Delle Donne. Those are the 2 players that come to mind immediately. And Brittany Griner as well. Yes, all 3 of those ladies those franchises should be finding their replacements, their successors to those 3 players respectively this year. And so while it doesn't make most sense in in the fans' mind to pass on a generational player, what you also can't do is pass on finding a cornerstone of your franchise down low, because that's what women's basketball is. It's about finding a cornerstone down low, right? And to me, I would love the idea of Cameron Brink joining the elite line of faces of the franchise bigs for the Sparks, from Lisa Leslie to Candace Parker, NECA. Now you have Cameron Brink. I think it makes sense. We're not going to do it because Paige is the better player. Got you. But they should. I think they should. And I think it forces other franchises to really think about and consider what they need to do, right? I think that's what makes it interesting. I think the Storm, for example, could the Storm benefit from the services of an Aliyah Edwards or Rakia Jackson or Alyssa Peely or Cardozo or any of those bigs? Absolutely, yeah. Do I think they should find a guard?
By the way, I don't have Rakia Jackson as a big. I think she's a dual forward. I wouldn't.
That's fine. I know that's why you excluded her, because we've had that conversation before. Most people classify her as a big, but I mean, whether she's a big, whether she's a dual forward, they could benefit from her services because Rakia Jackson's really good at the game of basketball. But I also think, for me anyway, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, I don't think of the Storm as a big centric offense or as a big centric basketball team. And I don't know if that's because Brianna's gone now, but it's Jewel Lloyd, right? And so in my mind, what you should do is you should find someone to replace Jewel Lloyd, because being guard centric works for the Storm. There's nothing that says that it doesn't, right? One of the greatest players of all time is Sue Bird. Sue Bird's a guard. They had Breanna Stewart, also one of the greatest of all time. But I think there's multiple different ways to go. I'm most excited for Cameron Brink because I think if the Sparks draft Cameron Brink, that would shock a lot of people. But if you strip away the shock value of it and look at it from a strictly basketball sense, Cameron Brink going to the Sparks makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a perfect fit. Like I don't think there is a better fit for Cameron Brink than LA. Honestly, that's just me
thinking against Paige Becker. You talk about Los Angeles, so Marcus. You ever been to LA before?
I will be.
Maybe when you go to LA, you'll understand.
I understand the idea, right? It's LA, it's Los Angeles, it's Hollywood, it's box office. I get all that. I think the idea of me proposing Cameron Brink going to LA is a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow because it's Cameron Brink instead of Paige.
Oh, no, she's on a.
I understand.
On one of the mocks going number 2 to
she
LA.
is.
I mean,
but I think
she'll go there. It's
not like most people.
It's not like a far-fetched thing. It's just I'm just on the side of we both agree Paige is the better player. If the better player is available and she has the name recognition and that brand behind her, and it's Los Angeles, there's a lot of ands.
No, of course, I understand it's a lot of ands. I just think though that sometimes we see this all the time, like in other, like someone in the comments to that reel was
on the side of like
we see it all the time. You're
succession.
Talking about succession. You think about what's worked, and what's worked is securing a big. I'm not saying that getting Paige won't work. It's freaking Paige Beckers, of course it'll work. Yeah. But in the long, like from a strictly basketball sense, to me, it makes more sense to go find NECA's successor before you go get a guard. That's all. But it's also a really rich big draft class. Like they couldn't find another big as a diamond in the rough that can be that.
Maybe. I mean, look, I should have looked deeper on the mock drafts to look at where they pick again because they might be able to find another big. But we both said like we both like the Sparks guards. Jordan, Canada, Lexi Brown. I mean, they do have, some pretty good guards.
They've got Zaya Cook, who I think is going to have a much better year next year than she did this year. She'll get more playing time. She'll see the floor.
So I do like what Cameron Brink does, as a big. I do think, she's super versatile. She can shoot it, right? Like she can do a lot of things. She's skilled, great instincts on the defensive end as well.
She's a double-double machine.
Then she gets double-double, super mobile. I mean, I don't know if she'll be getting double-doubles right away. And
not right away.
But no. She her instincts, her mobility, like she'll be able to contribute right away and do different things on the floor because of her movement, her size, her mobility, her shooting touch. I think she fits on the Sparks. I think there's a fit there. It's
Paige. It's Paige.
Yeah, it's the Paige thing.
It's Paige, yes.
Yeah, but even going back to because the Seattle thing is going to be interesting. I do think you have to look at getting one of these bigs to pair with Jewel Lloyd. I've seen one mock has them getting Aliyah Edwards. I think it's ESPN's that has Aliyah Edwards going 4th to Seattle.
And the mock that I reacted to on the page for Windsor has them getting Angel Reese, and we kind of unpacked that.
I mean, I don't know. I think I see Seattle going for more of an Aliyah Edwards type of big. I do think now, let me put this is what I was going to say before. One of the mocks has Alyssa Peely. I think it was Yahoo's has Alyssa Peely dropping to 18 to Las Vegas. By the way, that same mock, I'm pretty sure on Yahoo has Haley Van Lith somewhere after 10 and 12 or 13 or 14, whatever, going to Las Vegas. People, please do not let Las Vegas end up with Haley Van Lith and Alyssa Peely. Like,
could you imagine,
let's not let that.
No, let's let it happen. Let's let it happen. You've got
that would be the nonsense.
You've got Asia, you've got Kelsey Plum, you've got Chelsea Gray, you've got Jackie Young, Alyssa Peely, and Haley Van Lith, bro, in Vegas.
That would be the nonsense, bro. That would be the nonsense.
Vegas. I'd love that. And not just because
I'm still waiting for you, Mr. South Carolina fan, to advocate for Camila Cardoso. I haven't heard you say a peep about what you about because riding for Camila Cardoso. Because putting you on the spot.
No, well, so I appreciate that. That's what you do. I mean, whether it's on the show or in text messages, it's all it's our dynamic. I really do love Camila. I think so here's my thing. I don't want to kind of spoil it, but I do think, I don't know if it would be classified as a reach, right? But when you think about, again, finding someone to replace Elena Delle Donne, right? And I think the Mystics have to be in this mindset. Number one, because Elena's a free agent this year. There's no guarantee that she will come back. I think she should. There's no guarantee that she would, right? You have Shakira Austin, who I think is going to be up for a big year 3, coming off her hip injury next year. I would like to see her in the with the Mystics, because when I think back to 2019, I think back to when they won the championship. They had Emma Meeseman and they had Elena Delle Donne, right? Those are the two best players on the team. Elena was your post presence, and Emma, who also played down low, played a lot more like the swing role. She's a lot more, of that. She is not a dual forward, but she played a lot more of that swing that she did down low. I would like to see Camila play with Shakira down low in Washington. I think that would be a great fit for the both of them. I think Washington has pivoted their mindset from a team identity standpoint to look for a lot more of those tough, hustle, gritty guards, right? They have Brittany Sykes, who we love on Protect Our Queens, right? They've got Natasha Cloud, who's also a free agent, should come back, probably could come back. But I think Camilla's just, I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Be honest. Keep it truthful, man. We don't.
As a fan of South Carolina, I love all South Carolina players. The reason why I haven't done much like pining for Camila is quite frankly because I'm just too in love with all these other bigs. That's really all it is. I'm just too in love with all these other bigs, and I don't want to like slight Camila because she's amazing and I love her. Go Cox, right? But I just love all these other bigs, and I love the idea. And I think also that there are so many other bigs that I think everybody's looking at, that I think just by virtue of the fact that not everyone's looking for her, that she's probably going to slip. Whoever gets her is getting a great player. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. She's coming from a team coached by Dawn Staley. How many Dawn Staley coach players haven't gone to the WNBA and been great? Not many, if any at all. Like whoever gets her will be great. I just haven't done much pining for Camila because I love what I'm seeing from Cameron. I love what I see from Aliyah Edwards, as we talked about. I know we don't classify Rickea as a big, but I love Rickea Jackson and what she does. Peely's growing on me, right? After her game against South Carolina, I was like, whoa, who is this? You know what I mean? Like, and so Camila, I think somehow Camila is going to be forgotten. And so whoever gets her is going to get a diamond in the rough. But if someone were to take the chance on her, I would like for it to be the Mystics. Because I could see her because she was down the street from me. But
yeah. I think she'll go top 10. It'd be interesting if Dallas
should
her up at what they're at 4, right?
They're at
5.
They're at 5.
So that would be interesting if Dallas sweeps her up because they may feel like they want another big, right? Because they probably feel like they're right there with Vegas.
You know, the Dallas dynamic is such an interesting one. I'm glad you brought that up because I think the Wings are in such a unique situation where they have Arike, obviously. They have Satu, obviously, who, I love. They have a really good roster. Dallas is the only team last season that I looked at when they were playing against the Aces, and I was like, this is a team that if they were to beat the Aces, I'd be shocked, right? Obviously, the Liberty, of course, but like they weren't going to play the Liberty into the finals. I'm talking strictly like on the road too. Dallas has a specific identity that I absolutely think if they draft Alyssa Peely, she falls right into that identity. like of just playing very balanced, very fluid basketball on both sides of the ball. And the one thing that the Aces struggled with last season, and you can attribute this to the absence of Candace Parker, I know we talk about it a lot, but the one thing they struggled with last season is big basketball teams. Like they struggled with them. They did not fare well against Connecticut. They beat Connecticut at least once or twice, but those games were not easy games, right? They didn't do well against Connecticut. They didn't do well against Dallas. If I'm not mistaken, Dallas gave Vegas their first loss last season because the Aces, and again, it could be because they didn't have Candace Parker or not, but the Aces currently constructed are not built to effectively handle big teams, right? They do their best damage when they have the matchup up top in the backcourt, as we talk about through the course of the finals, when we have Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young. Like that's what they do well at. And so I love that for them. I think if the Wings are truly committed to taking that next step and at least getting to the finals this season, what I think they could do if the team is just the same, taking any one of these bigs gets them there because it forces
someone dynamic, bro.
It forces the subject. It definitely does. I think the Wings, no matter what big they take, would be in a good spot to continue to take the next step.
At 5, they got to take someone dynamic. Alyssa Peely would raise eyebrows, but she's dynamic. I think you throw up a dynamic, versatile player that affects basketball on the floor with her passing, with her skill. You throw her in there where they already have great talent, like you mentioned in Dallas. You can't overthink a player like that can make real basketball impact right away, even though she's undersized. Forget size with her. Just think about her skill. But I think at 5, they got to go with a dynamic. Dallas, that's a huge pick for them. They've got to go with a dynamic player. I think the most dynamic bit, I think Aliyah Edwards is going to be gone by then at 5.
Do you?
I think I do. I think she's going to go. I think she'll go top 5. I think she'll be a top 5 pick. I would be most interested to see what the Storm does. I definitely think whoever the Storm picks obviously dictates who Dallas picks, not just because they're ahead of them, but also because when you think about that dynamic nature that you're talking about, like no matter who goes where, Caitlin Clark-Page and Cameron are going to be the first 3 off the board. Like I'd be shocked if, specifically Cameron, because I'd be shocked if Cam's not off the board by 3. Aliyah Edwards, I would like to see Aliyah Edwards in Dallas. I think that would be great. I think that would be an amazing fit. But if you can't get Aliyah Edwards, not saying that Alyssa is like not a good player, but Alyssa would be, I think, if I'm Dallas, I'm making my draft board, it would be Aliyah Edwards and then Alyssa Peely for sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Can we talk about the Dream for a second, just before we move on? The Dream are in an interesting spot as well. I don't think they would draft a big this season. I also don't see a reason why they wouldn't draft a big in general. But and this might take us to a conversation that's not big centric. But when you look at the Dream and what they did last season and the step that they took to make it to the playoffs, they're likely going to be a playoff team next season again. Is there a player in this draft that you think, if the Dream take them, undeniably gets them into that playoff like air, or even the next step of like possibly making a surprise run to the finals next year? Because they have really solid building blocks, right? They've got a great head coach in Tanisha Wright. They have Ryan Howard, another player we love on the show, right? They have Cheyenne Parker, who was amazing last season. Alicia Gray was amazing last season. Haley Jones, in the minutes that she did get last season, was really good her rookie year. Like there's definitely pieces to build off on. But is there one player that you think the Dream could take that could send them over the top and like really push them into that? Because I feel like the East, I say the East like it really matters in the WNBA. It doesn't really quite yet. But you have the Sun, you have the Liberty, and like maybe the Mystics, but the Mystics are hurt a lot. But like if the Dream could firmly push themselves into that top 4 and kind of stay away from the bottom 2 or 3 in the East, like I feel like, is there a player that can do that for them where they can just firmly get grouped up there and not be down here?
I'm definitely pining for Angel Reese to Atlanta at 8. I think she will probably be available, and I think that would be a great look. I think that's a great city for Angel Reese, and I think basketball-wise that works. I don't know if that takes them over the hump right away, but I do think with her energy, with her competitiveness, with her rim running, her versatility, the way she battles, I think I would love to see her playing with a Ryan Howard. The fact that they do have talent there already, especially at guard. I would love to see them add an Angel Reese, who I think she'll be willing to do a lot of dirty work things, which is what I think that, that may be one of the main things that team is really missing. In terms of just like that grit, like hard work to turn, like you hear more of those words describing like the Mystics and Connecticut than you do Atlanta. I think their coach even alluded to that a little bit this past season, but I think Angel Reese could come in and help to address some of that. I think that would be a really good fit.
I think we've talked about Angel Reese going 8 before, just because it just kind of, I think again, it makes the most sense. But also when you look at it from the standpoint, and again, I said this in the clip that we posted on Instagram about when I was breaking down the draft, my position on Angel Reese is not that she's good at basketball, not good at basketball. I want to make that clear. My position on Angel Reese is that relative to some of the other bigs that we have coming out, her upside or her WNBA readiness today or by draft day will not be at the level of some of these other girls like Aliyah Edwards, for example, or Cameron Brink, or even Elisa Peely. That doesn't mean she can't benefit a roster. The other thing too is Angel Reese just fits Atlanta, right? Like one of the things that we talk about a lot off camera is the idea that you look at where Atlanta plays. Atlanta plays almost in what you would kind of equate to a college atmosphere, right? Like their I don't want to say stadium, but like their arena is not as big as some of the other places that other teams play. It's very homey. It's very like right here. That's what Angel Reese is used to. She's used to that very homey, in your face, like let's interact and let's really have a good time. I haven't been there, but I've seen it a lot. I will be there. I'm going there this year though.
Okay.
The dream.
Describing it like you know the atmosphere. I'm like, oh, you've been there.
I really do. I watch a lot of Atlanta Dream games. I really do. They're one of the teams I always see. I really love. Like when it's a very homely spot. They play not a big building. It's not a big, but it's really interactive and it's very much like a show, right? And we talked about Ole Miss's coach earlier. One of the things that she mentioned after they played LSU this weekend was she thought that her players got caught up in the show that is LSU, because that's what Angel Reese and LSU brings to the table. Angel Reese brings a show to Atlanta, and whenever you watch a Dream game, they love that. Like they love that environment. They love that feel. It's very, very college-y at Atlanta, and I mean that in the most respectful way possible. I don't. In case any Dream fans are watching, I don't want you guys to make it seem like I'm saying like it's a derogatory thing. Like that's great. Like the Mystics arena where they play, it's also very college-y. It's not big. It's not like the Liberty who play at Barclays or the Aces who play at Michelob Ultra Arena. It's like a big building. It's a small building. It's very homey, and you really get to feel the energy. That's what Angel thrives off. She thrives off feeling that energy. You have Ryan Howard, so she's not going to automatically come in and be the first option, obviously. She might not even come in and be the second or third option, because you look at what Alicia Gray and Cheyenne Parker does. So she ends at worst, she comes in as the fourth option. Angel Reese as a fourth option, which gives her the chance she's not going to get all the defensive focus like she's getting right now. She's going to really get a chance to develop her game in a way that maybe she isn't able to right now as the first option at LSU. That's just not good for Atlanta right now, but it's good for Atlanta long term, because when Cheyenne Parker leaves or decides to retire, right, that opens the door for Angel Reese to come in and take that third option spot or even that second option spot, and you have a really interesting dynamic in Atlanta. So I think not just from a Atlanta Dream putting them over the top standpoint, but from an Angel Reese needing to get a little bit more polished standpoint, coming in and being the fourth option, as opposed to maybe going to like a Phoenix, for example, and basically having to come in and instantly be the first option, a much better way to start your career for Angel Reese if you get drafted by the Dream.
Yeah, a couple things. It's not guaranteed that my prediction is she's not coming out this year. I don't think she's coming out.
She's probably not. And she's teased so much that she's not, that we might as well just believe that she's not coming out.
I don't think there's any reason to believe she's coming out of college this year. She's on top of the world. The winner lose the Final Four or first round, whatever, it doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter. I don't think she's coming out at all. So we're going to see what her potential really gets to see if she because I was going to say if she can help a WNBA roster right now today,
of course,
and in June when the draft, or May or whenever the draft is, she can help a WNBA.
I think it's in March, April.
I don't think any team would be drafting her to be the number one option yet. I don't think that's what she's showing. She's not the number one option on her team right now.
No, she's not.
But I don't think that's how a team would be drafting her based on what we're seeing from her right now. But you can bring her in to be a good third, fourth option and a workhorse as you described. I think that would make a lot of sense for Atlanta. So if she's out there, she comes out and she's available, I would love to see her go to Atlanta at 8. But all of that being said, I do actually have no reason to believe I don't think she's coming out at all.
She might not come out. Do you think Angel's not coming out affects any draft boards at all? Or do you think like there's teams that already know in the back of their mind, yeah, Angel's not probably coming in? Like,
no,
how much of a factor do you think Angel Reese is on these teams' minds right now? Considering that I think of all the players on the list, right? There's obviously your no-brainers because they have to come out, but then there's others like one we'll talk about in a second where like they definitely could come out, but they're more likely going to come out than stay. Angel Reese feels like she's more likely to stay than come out. Do you think the teams are factoring that in at all, or do you think they're just
that's their job? That's their job, Marcus. Yeah. They're thinking about it right now. They've got backup plans. If she's not available, we look here. If they're not available, we look here. Apparently, there's a bunch of new international players coming into this draft. So
there are a lot of international players.
That's what they're supposed to be paid to do is find contingency.
I wanted to come out this year just because I wanted to come out this year for purely selfish reasons. It would
make this draft that much more, I mean, it would make this draft that much better.
There's a week like from like the end of May to the beginning of June that Atlanta has 3 straight home games and like a 5-6 day stretch. And my plan is to go to Atlanta and feel the hominess of the Atlanta Dream home games. I'd like to see Angel Reese there when I go down.
Speaking of which, you forgot the biggest point about Atlanta. Do you know what they call Atlanta? You're talking about college and homie and all this stuff.
But I'm sure you're going to tell me.
You're forgetting the number one thing about Atlanta.
Bro, I'm a nerd, bro.
You don't know what they call Atlanta? You don't know what Atlanta's called?
Bro, I'm a nerd, bro. Come on, man.
It's not about being a nerd. You're just young. You haven't been to Atlanta yet.
I've been to Atlanta before.
You've been to Atlanta, but you haven't been
to It was for a church trip. This was the last time I went to Atlanta. The last time I went to Atlanta, I was not a WNBA watcher. Was the last time I went to Atlanta. So.
Yeah, no. It's Black Hollywood. Atlanta.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. I wasn't thinking that. I've heard of that, though. I've heard that.
Come on, man. That's the most important point. You're talking about all this atmosphere. You're forgetting the most important thing. I was trying to put it lightly by saying that's a good city for Angel. It's Black Hollywood.
No, it is. It's a great city for Angel. She's from Baltimore. She'll fit right in.
Already. It goes without saying. Like, it's right there. I mean, yeah. That's the big point right there.
Before we get into our next segment, we're going to toss it back to a clip of the episode we had a couple weeks ago.
But
I think
it's hard to repeat as national chat. It's hard.
It is. I think that's the difficult thing with it is that there's a scenario where she's not even thinking about being drafted, and we're all just kind of we're all just kind of doing it. And, like the plan is just for her to stay.
I'm going as long as I can at Iowa to go as far as I can. Listen, if she doesn't get to the national championship this season, I have reason to believe she may stay for another year just from how beloved she is in Iowa and how it seems clear she wants to win a natty there.
I think we have very similar but also very differing opinions on Caitlin Clark and whether or not she comes out in the draft. Is Caitlin Clark coming out this year?
I don't know. We talked about it on that episode. Like I find this stuff fascinating because I don't really, it depends on what Iowa does. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion she's leaving. I do wonder if she's motivated by the prospect of going to Indiana, playing with Aliyah Boston, if she feels like that's kind of the writing on the wall, if she's made up her mind no matter what. Of course, she's not going to tell us, but I do wonder if she kind of knows in the back of her mind what she's doing, or if she's kind of going with the flow, seeing what happens. If she's seeing what happens, then we're going to have to see what happens with Iowa. She could come back for another year. I feel like I said in the clip, I think she's very motivated by winning a natty at Iowa. She came that close. She was just there last year. She came that close. So we'll see what happens this year. I think that is the biggest thing to watch for. And you said the best thing, I think. It's how she loses. It's not even just when, it's how she loses.
Man, if Iowa gets slapped around this year.
If she were to lose, of course.
If she were to lose and they get slapped around, she's not coming out.
Yeah, I mean,
She's
I
just
don't know
too
who's
competitive.
slapping her on Iowa at this point. To be honest, I don't know if that's even.
That's a great point. It's
I
not,
don't know
but
if that's
maybe
at this point,
they run into UCLA, who's been clicking on all Senators, and maybe they just find something and they
only a
slap it
team
around.
like
But
that, yeah, could
only a team
slap
like
around
UCLA
Iowa,
would
but
slap around Iowa. Absolutely.
yeah.
So, but let's talk about Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston. This is a duo that has all women's basketball fans just foaming at the mouth. Can't wait for it to happen.
Yep.
What does this do for Caitlin? What does this do for Aliyah, especially if and when we see these two on the same floor together for the Fever?
That's probably going to be that would probably be the next great WNBA duo. I think we're seeing a lot more of what makes Caitlin Clark special beyond just the gravity of her insane range of shooting the three ball, which we all know about and love and see. She can play the point guard. I mean, she pitches the ball ahead. She has excellent, exceptional vision, not great vision, like exceptional. And the way Aliyah Boston runs the floor, the way she rim runs just end to end, her ceiling ability, her catching ability. I mean, look at what Caitlin Clark was able to do with Megan Sonano and the big she has now. I mean, and they're good. They're good players. They're good bigs. But this is Aliyah Boston we're talking about, who is just rookie of the year. So you combine their abilities, it is literally a basketball match made in heaven, and that's why women's basketball fans are so excited about the prospect for it. It makes you have the positions make sense, the abilities, the combined abilities and skill sets make perfect sense. And Caitlin's ability is she's going to be an impact right away. She's going to be an impact right away, and the fact that she has an elite big, one of the elite bigs in the league already waiting for her. That's I mean, bro, they're gonna turn Indiana up. Indiana Fever will be the hottest ticket in town, and not long coming into the season.
Yeah, I would say, and I would just I'll reiterate what I texted you the other day. We were kind of putting the show together. Is I'm very excited to see if the Fever, if Caitlin does go there, if they follow kind of the path that we saw the Dream follow last year, right? You have your year two, you have your player coming into year two who's expected to make a big jump. Obviously Ryan Howard for the Dream. You're talking to Atlanta about Aliyah Boston for the Pacers. You have other players, key players around her that are expected to make big jumps, right? That was Cheyenne Parker and Alicia Gray last year in Atlanta. We're talking about Kelsey Mitchell and, my God, Alyssa Smith, I think is going to have an incredible year this year in Indiana. And then you have your young guard or young player specifically coming in. Last year they had Haley Jones. Haley Jones gave the Dream a lot of key minutes and a lot of big moments down the stretch of the season last season that kind of pushed them into the playoffs. You have Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, obviously a much better finished college product coming into Indiana compared to Haley Jones coming into Atlanta. But I think that the Dream drafting Caitlin Clark puts them in a position to make the playoffs. I really do. I think when you have
Fever drafting Caitlin Clark.
The Fever drafting Caitlin Clark, yes. I think it puts them in a position to win the playoffs, or not win the playoffs, make the playoffs. I really do. When you have the talent of Aliyah Boston, we were going nuts when we saw Aliyah Boston putting in that extra work with Brittany Griner during the FIBA that time when she was working on footwork and things. Like, my God, like Aliyah Boston working on footwork. Can you imagine what that looks like in year two, on top of Kelsey Mitchell continuing to build on what she set down, on top of more specifically Alyssa Smith, who was, I would say, the unsung hero of the Fever last year, because she took what she did in Athletes Unlimited in WNBA offseason. She took what she did there and it like seamlessly transitioned into WNBA. Like, it looked like she looked so much better, so much more confident in her shot. She was shooting lights out. She had several career moments or several career highs and several career games last season. She's only going to continue to build on that. You throw Caitlin Clark into that mix, where Kelsey Mitchell doesn't have to be on the ball as much. Caitlin Clark, as you mentioned, is great with her floor awareness. She's great with her passing. You have Alyssa Smith and Aliyah Boston down low. I think very young team still, obviously, but I think it puts them in a position to they just off the talent alone. And shout out to their head coach, because I don't think she gets out of love either. But like all of that together is just, if it all goes the way everyone expects, everyone hopes, everything thinks it can go, if that has the potential where we're talking about the Fever sneaking into the playoffs, like at the very end. Odds are they probably won't, because I think they might be, one or two away. But Caitlin Clark definitely helps accelerate that for them, where they could sneak into the playoffs at the end of the season, because there's just a lot of talent and a lot of big jumps and building blocks that have been set from last season. That adding Caitlin Clark to that is only going to enhance that.
Yeah, unlike Angel Reese, though, like as a number one pick, and because of the talent that Caitlin Clark is, you're drafting her to be the number one option right away. Yes. So for them, for any franchise, like it's very important how comfortable she is doing the things that she's used to doing and getting accustomed to that new level. The quicker she does that, the better the Fever are going to look. Aliyah Boston had to go through the same things. Like she looked good right away and she figured things out quickly. I think Caitlin will too, but you also have to remember Caitlin has the challenge of showing that she is different from a Sabrina Ionescu from an athletic standpoint. As a guard in the WNBA, she won't be able to blow by. Now, Caitlin has, to me, from watching her over the last few years closely, I've covered the Big Ten. I've been watching her since her freshman year. She has gotten quicker. She does have a better burst. She is better off the bounce, and she has a quicker first step. She's shown the ability, and she pushes pace in the full court. Like she moves quicker and faster, maybe than people might realize. She doesn't have like raw athleticism, but she gets to her spots. She knows she moves really well, and she moves faster than people may realize. The other thing is that she's elevated. I mean, Iowa Caitlin leads the country in assists. Iowa's top 10 in the country in assists, but Caitlin herself, she leads the country in scoring, but she leads the country in assists. And that's who she's playing with now. So you put her around the kind of high level talent she'd play with in Indiana or just any team in the WNBA. She knows how to elevate her teammates no matter what talent or skill level they're at. She's showing that. But that challenge for Caitlin is to show, because I don't think she's going to be necessarily blowing by some of these WNBA guards right away once she gets to the league. I think that's going to be a big adjustment for her just in terms of the quickness and the speed. But the number one thing that I keep telling people, why you cannot ever worry about like a player like Caitlin Clark translating to the next level or any level, shooting, when you can shoot the basketball at that way. I'm not talking about range. I'm just talking about shooting. When you can shoot the ball that way, you'll be fine. She'll be fine. Like she'll be anywhere from fine to really good to elite, like or all-time great, whatever. But like at the very least, she'll be fine because she can shoot the basketball. Sorry, it's basketball. If you can shoot, you'll probably be fine.
I do want to ask you this question. I don't think anyone has thought about this before. I have a very weird mind. A lot of crazy things happen in here. It's something that just dawned on me today that I don't think anyone's talking about. I don't think it's possible, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it. When you have a player the caliber of Caitlin Clark, and maybe this doesn't apply for a team like the Fever considering what you'd be giving up, but do you think it's possible at all, or at least probable even, that the Fever move off of this pick to go get more picks later in the draft to get more players to put around Aliyah Boston?
Did you preface that by saying if Caitlin Clark isn't coming out?
No, I did not say that.
The only way they do that is if Caitlin Clark isn't coming out.
That's fair.
And if they,
I agree. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it, but I agree with that. Yeah.
No, I think they're going all in on Caitlin, man. I feel like the campaign is happening now.
When you got Aliyah Boston covering Caitlin Clark's games, which I mean, obviously that's not happening intentionally. But when Aliyah Boston's covering Caitlin Clark's games and really loving what she's seeing, Aliyah's like, yeah, let's get her up here.
Yeah, you saw them celebrating when they got the number one pick. I mean, it's always a good thing to get the number one pick, absolutely. But you celebrate a little different when you
celebrate a little bit different when you know who. Yeah, absolutely.
Come on now.
I just, you gotta, the draft day trades are always fun, I think if Caitlin Clark comes out, they're not gonna trade their first pick. They definitely could though. Like they definitely could assess like, hey man, we could really get some good stuff going on here. To get a lot of picks, but they're not gonna do it. Not if maybe Caitlin has to stay in Iowa for them to move on the first overall pick. Or they can. Well, there's Paige right there, so they don't come out. They'll just take Paige actually, so it doesn't matter.
Right, that's what I was saying.
Doesn't matter.
If Paige is there, maybe they might be like, "Yep, well, let's just go with Paige."
Let's just go get Paige, which is just as good, and depending on who you ask, is actually even better because it's Paige.
Either way.
It's always a privilege, man. First one back felt good, man.
Great to be back.
Really good. It is great to be back. As always, you guys can find us on the Give It a Shot Network live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, unless we tell you otherwise. And you can, of course, follow on Instagram at @ProtectOurQueens_ for all clips from the shows, other clips that come out of our weird basketball minds, and just general women's basketball content in general. As always, we enjoy doing this. We enjoy the support. We appreciate the support. 2023 was a great start. 2024 is going to be even better. We have a lot of very fun things in store for 2024. So just make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel and also following on Instagram very closely. Had a lot of great guests last year. We're going to have a lot of great guests this year, of course, as well. So for my guy, Martin Sories, this is Marcus of the Protect Our Queens podcast signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys have a blessed evening.